So let's get to some questions. Number one, what is the best strategy for keeping your staff motivated when you have bad news coming from corporate? In other words, towing the company line versus telling the truth to your trusted personnel. For example, someone is planning to buy a house, they work for you, and you know they're about to become a victim of an upcoming staff cutback. What do? That's a tough one. That is a really tough one because you've developed this. A good coach has developed a relationship of trust with the personnel, with the personalities. But at the same time, you're also in management, and you're paid by the company to protect the company assets and to toe the company line. At the end of the day, I believe it comes down to the relationship that you have with talent. I was in a similar situation a few years ago, more than a few years ago now. But the station I was on, I knew we were changing format. I was the general manager of the station, and I knew the format was about to change. We were going to change probably in about 6 months. And I had a very high-profile morning show that was going to probably not want to be a part of that next morning show, of that next radio station. We would love to have kept them. We would wanted to have them be a part of it, but I knew it probably wasn't for them and it wasn't going to be a good fit. And when we changed format, they weren't going to like it. I took them into my confidence. I said, look, I don't want you telling anybody about this. I'm going to bring you into the back room and tell you what I'm thinking. And I'm telling you this because you may not want to be here after we make this move. I hope that you are, but you may not want to. What I ask of you in return is that you be a good spokesman and and be on my side in helping me get through this format change. And they did that, and it was fantastic, and it cemented the relationship. But that was the type of relationship that I had with the talent. Not all talent can be trusted like that. Sometimes if you tell talent bad news in advance, you know that talent is going to react in a very negative way, and you're going to get the negativity before you need to have it. So you really have to know your personnel. You got to know the relationship that you have. Above all, try not to lie to them. You don't have to tell them all of the truth, but try not to lie to them because it damages your credibility and it damages your trust. And they do talk to other people in the market and at the radio station, and that will come back at you. So, tell the truth, be honest, but you don't have to tell them everything that's going on because you are the manager. You don't have to tell them everything that's going on. You have to show them everything that's going on behind the scenes. Here's another question. I have an experience a few years ago working with some TV stars on the radio, and it was a very difficult time. But I learned a lot with how the choice of the right words in approaching them would get what I was looking for. In a world where the audience demands more for visual interactive, how to prepare our radio talent for this new era without overflowing their egos and putting a project on garbage project on. Yeah, this is good. Yeah, in the conversation I had with Mike, we talked a little bit about a television personality that I worked with who was becoming a radio star and was probably the easiest to manage personality that I've ever had, easiest to coach because she craved coaching. She wanted it. She'd been on television. She'd been a big television star. And she said, look, I'm a TV personality. Tell me what you want from me. Tell me what you want me to do. Point me in the right direction, and I'll go light it up. And what a great response. Kind of like the way Mike was talking about the play-by-play talent that he had worked with in sports and how the athletes were craving the feedback because they knew that their coach was trying to help them get better. But when he got to talk to the play-by-play guys, the DJs, he said that's when they cross their arms and it's okay. You're going to tell me what to do, right? And I see that a lot. I believe that to be a real challenge. I think one of the things that coaches really need to do is create an environment and a situation where the talent sees you as not only an advocate and a cheerleader and someone that's on their side, but someone who can help them improve and grow. And if they see you that way, if they really believe that you are their partner and that you're on their team, you're not going to have any problem with that. And it's going to be a very productive environment. And you can tell them things that could have been improved from the show, and they're not going to take it personally because you know you're helping them improve to win the game tomorrow. So try to develop that relationship. And yes, a lot of it is choosing the right words, as this person points out. It's finding the right words to inspire and motivate and cause the personality to do what is good for them, what you want them to do and what they want to do, rather than making them feel like they're just doing whatever order that you hand out. Next question is that some coaches get frustrated when the talent pushes back on coaching suggestions. How can this be avoided? And how can you ensure that the talent understands? I love pushback from talent. Communication is a two-way street. And if you're a program director or a manager or a coach and you never get pushback from the personalities that you're coaching, you're probably not getting buy-in. Pushback doesn't mean they're arguing with you. Pushback means that they're questioning, they're analyzing, sometimes it's their way of asking why. Why do you want me to do this? And if you're a coach that's telling them what you would like for them to do and you're pointing them in a direction and you can't explain why, then maybe you're not giving them the right direction. Maybe there's something that could be better in the way that you're coaching them. So don't look to avoid pushback. Pushback is part of the conversation. They're saying, explain to me again, how can I do this better? Why do you want it done that way? Now, you do get some talent that is belligerent and they take everything that you say and they just want to fight about it, or they just want to argue, or they don't want to change because they don't want to change. That happens too, and I understand that. How can you, the second part of the question is, how can you ensure that the talent understands that this doesn't happen? Well, you can ensure that they understand and it doesn't happen if you've gone through the coaching process that I laid out in the seminar, and you've gone through the goal setting stage. And if the talent is on the same page as you are when setting goals, and again, it's not ratings goals. Ratings happen as a result of achieving your goals, not ratings goals. But if you have the same goals, here's what we want to accomplish. We want to be a top tier morning show. Okay, well, we want to be a top tier morning show that is seen as being a celebrity on the radio station that just happens to have a radio show. All right. If that's the goal, then what do we need to do to get to that goal? What do we need to do to achieve that? And if you sit down and evaluate, okay, identify the things that you need to do to achieve the goal, then evaluate where we are now within that context, and then say, okay, here are the things that we need to do, the barriers that we have to overcome in order to be successful in reaching our goal. And if you've done that together, and if the talent truly buys into the goal, if they understand the evaluation and agree with the evaluation, and if they understand and buy into what it's going to take to be successful in achieving our goal, then you shouldn't have that much pushback. It shouldn't be that belligerent pushback where they don't want to change just for the sake of change, because you're working together. And now the coach is on the side of the talent, helping them succeed, not criticizing what they do. And that is everything in the coaching relationship. If we're all going in the same direction, how are we going to achieve this? And the coach is seen as being part of the key that helps unlock the potential that takes them where they want to go. That's where you really want to get to. Somewhat unrelated question. This says, the danger to the broadcast medium in general that's created by three major commercial companies centralizing their programming and one other non-commercial organization operating hundreds of radio stations out of 2 or maybe 3 studios. How can smaller companies compete? This is a big topic. And look, I totally understand that frustration. I think I'm not going to call it a danger to the broadcast medium. I'm going to call it a shift in how the industry is competing and how the industry is operating. And I think some of it is out of necessity. I think some of it's out of common sense. where you centralize your programming and you centralize some of the operation. Some of it, I believe, is done for the wrong reasons. Some of it's done for brilliant reasons. And I'm not going to go into the pros and cons of what is happening. The question is, what do you do about it, right? How do smaller companies compete? If I were running a radio station today, I would remind myself and I would remind my staff that the audience doesn't care who owns the radio station or where the broadcast is originating from. They only listen to one radio station at a time. Sometimes they switch those radio stations very quickly from one to another, but they can only listen to one at a time. So how can we connect with this audience in the most dynamic and personal ways that we possibly can? Now, that's not going to happen by putting on a jukebox. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I'm in talent coaching. And that's why I've said so many times that the future of broadcasting is personality radio. It's personalities that make connections with the audience in their community in a personal and over the top's the wrong word, but in a personal and a big way that's larger than life. And you're not going to do that by playing more music or giving away more money or anything else like that. It's going to come from really making that personal connections. I have a lot of webinars and a lot of articles on this. If you go to insidersradionetwork.com, there's a seminar on on being local and the value of being local that we just did. It was either last month or the month before. You can look that up either at insidersradionetwork.com or at tjohnsonmediagroup.com and check that out. But yeah, you can compete. Absolutely, you can compete. It's just a different level of competition. And by the way, it's not just other broadcasters who are raising the bar of competition. They're bringing bigger resources. They're centralizing it. They're bringing big time talent into your market on the radio dial. But there are personalities and channels on satellite radio, on digital only streams, on podcasts, on YouTube channels, on Twitch channels, on TikTok that are taking just as many, and I would say more, quarter hours away from your radio station than other radio stations are. So the goal is to focus in on your audience and find ways of really connecting with them. Next question is about air checking talent. Do you have any tips on how to air check talent and how to work with them in that environment? Yeah, you know what? That's air checking is obviously a part of coaching. I've got I think I've got 3 webinars on air checking. If you go to either tjohnsonmediagroup.com and do a search for air check sessions or Insiders Radio Network, there's a seminar called Air Check Sessions That Don't Suck. And there's several seminars on it as well. And there's also an ebook that you can get at tjohnsonmediagroup.com called Air Check Sessions That Don't Suck. Next question is how I can encourage my talent to think out of the box and think more multi-platform. Well, look, that's a deep question. And I'm planning a webinar in the not too distant future on multi-platform performances. And we'll be giving some tips and some suggestions and some keys. I think you look at it as I want to be a celebrity in the market that leads a group of individuals with a common interest. And if you focus on, and I just happen to have a radio show as one of the key ways that I do that, and build everything around the radio show and let it expand from there, and bring everything into focus. Okay, let's get to some of the online questions that have come up here. A couple of personal. By the way, all of you who have written me a private message here, I will get back to you with a private response at the conclusion of the seminar. One asks about needing a consultant to help you get back on the air. I will get back to you on that. Let's see. Oh, Corey says going to be at boot camp. Corey, I'm going to send you an email later on today and invite you to a dinner on Thursday night. Are certain talents uncoachable is the question. Are certain talents uncoachable? Yeah, I think they are. I think there are. I think they are relatively few and far between. But I have come across talent that is uncoachable. I'll tell you the type that the reasons why I think they become that way and what makes them uncoachable. I believe that all of us operate on the motivation or the inspiration that Wall Street operates on. And I don't know if you play the stock market or are into finance at all, but they say that the stock market is driven by two emotions, greed and fear. Greed is I want to make all the money I possibly can, and that's what inspires me. I don't want to miss out on a stock run. And fear of what if this thing crashes and I lose everything that I've got? And both of those powerful emotions will drive your reactions. It drives your action and your reaction. So a lot of products will play to financial products will play to that emotion of greed and fear. And I think that we behave that way in real life as well, not just in the financial world. And I think personalities behave that way. I think personalities are good at what they do and become great at what they do, partially because they want to be stars. They want to be celebrities. They want to be heard. They have a message, they have a voice, and they want to use their platform for it to be heard. Yes, they want to be number one. Sometimes the greed expands into, I want a big ratings check. I want the adulation. I want the recognition. I want the acknowledgement. They're driven by that. And that's a very powerful emotion. And those who really want to make it to the top and are driven by that greed, and you can be the coach that helps them achieve that and get what they want, it's going to be a very coachable and very productive relationship. So that's coaching from greed. The other part of it is fear of failure. What if I come in and this doesn't work? What if everybody stops listening? What if the next ratings period is bad? And fear can also be a very powerful motivating factor, that I don't want to be out of a job. What if I don't want to fail? I don't want that feeling of failure. And so that's what drives them every day. And in fact, the great personalities, both of those things drive them. I've come across personalities who have lost greed. They've been in it for a long time. I've been doing this 30 years. I'm number one. I know I'm number one. I've been number one. I've achieved everything I want to achieve. People know me when I go around to different places in town, and nothing gets them excited from the greed standpoint anymore. Okay, so that's a very difficult motivator. However, if they're still motivated by fear, what if people stop liking me? What if people stop listening to my radio show? What if the ratings go down? What if my endorsements go down? What if people stop liking me so much? That is also motivating. So, but I think those personalities who have lost both, they're no longer worried that they're going to fail, and they're no longer inspired or motivated by the desire to succeed. You lose both of those, I think they're uncoachable. I think that you've got to, nobody as a coach, nobody as a manager can inspire anybody, can motivate anyone. You have to be self-motivated. But a coach can inspire someone who's already motivated. But you can't motivate someone who's not. They've got to be self-motivated. So if you get someone who is not self-motivated, they're not excited about the business, they're not excited about their show, they're just coming and mailing it in, and they've lost all of that motivation, they're probably uncoachable, and you're not going to get what you want out of them. And if you can do it, I've seen a lot of situations where radio stations and managers make the decision to keep that kind of talent on for a long time because they tend to be very sellable, or they've got a reputation in the market, and they just watch the ratings tick down and down and down and down and down. And then suddenly you realize we have to make a change, and we've got a big problem on our hands. And that's a major change. The sooner you can identify when you've got a talent that's on the one-way trip to oblivion, that they're not going to come back, that's when you want to start making some adjustments, making some changes. And ideally, you'd be able to add some things to their show. Add some new influence to their show, some new personalities, some new partners, some new something that pumps new life into it. But some personalities are going to reject that as well. They don't want to change, and they're just going to refuse to change. So yeah, some personalities are uncoachable, but I think there's far fewer that are uncoachable than personalities who are very coachable. And I think it's, again, do everything you can to win that personality. Next question. What do you usually focus on in coaching sessions? Is it delivery, timing, content, or other factors? Great question, Gail. In coaching sessions, it varies. In the seminar, I pointed out that you should only focus on one or two things at a time. And I mean that as when you're evaluating and setting up your goals, identify those things that are going to make you successful in setting out what you do. And if you identify one or two things that's going to move you forward toward achieving that, I would stay laser focused on those one or two things, and until it is not only overcome, but is mastered. And then find something else to work on. And if you do that, a couple of things are going to happen. Talent is going to see success very quickly. And by the way, if you do two things, one should be a small thing, like a mechanical thing or a technical or a tactical thing. And the other should be big picture, that's transformational. So for example, let's say you've got a personality that has a crutch, where they say things the same way over and over and over again, or they tend to rattle off the call letters of the radio station, the name of the show, and the phone number without thinking about it. They don't put any emotion into it. It doesn't really get heard. That's a mechanical thing. And that's a fairly easy change, but it isn't like you can flip a switch and have it be better tomorrow. So focus on that because it's mechanical and it's tactical, and you can challenge them to change the way that they're saying things. At the same time, you can work on something that's big picture, that's going to take time. We want to get more proficient at teasing, or we want to have better hooks going into your stories or your segments, or we want to develop this feature that's going to get us to where we are. Those are big picture things that's going to take some time, and it's going to take some work. It's going to be some creative work. So one of them is small, and it's helping them overcome a problem that they have. And the other is larger, and it's helping put them in a position to where they can really succeed by mastering it. Working on those two things at one time is very doable, and you'll start to see some success because they're probably going to master the tactical thing pretty quickly. And so within a week or two, you're going to be patting them on the back and high-fiving them and telling them how great they are and praising them because we've nailed that. Then move on to something else. So the coaching sessions can, maybe the thing that you've identified is delivery. Maybe the thing you've identified is timing. Maybe it's that you're picking the low-hanging fruit in content. Maybe you're not developing your topics as well as you could be, and you want to get more creative in developing topics. Whatever it is, focus on that. In my seminar, Air Check Sessions That Don't Suck, and in the book, the same name, Air Check Sessions That Don't Suck, I give you 18 themes for air check sessions. And it's how you can keep those air check coaching sessions fresh and interesting. And so it's not redundant where you're just bringing in audio and going over everything and then picking it apart. And that takes some discipline on the coach's side as well, because whenever you're working on one or two things, you're going to hear some other things that need to be addressed, but they don't need to be addressed today. The things that need to be addressed today are the things that we're working on today, not the things that we want to work on in the future. You can't fix everything on a show at the same time. I've used this analogy, and a lot of you who've been on here have probably heard me say this a couple of times. It's like teaching children math facts. You can't teach them geometry and algebra until they learn multiplication and division. And they can't learn multiplication and division until they learn to add and subtract. And you can't learn addition and subtraction until you learn to count. You can't learn to count until you understand what numbers are. So it's progressive. You start at the beginning, you start at the basics, you start at the things that they need to know now, and you focus just on that. Okay, now that you've got that, let's add something to it. Or let's move on to something different. And I think it's the same way with personalities. And that's why it's so important to set those goals, set the objectives, back up and say, what's it going to take for us to get there? Where are we now? The evaluation. And that's where the critique comes in. Critique comes in only at the evaluation time. After that, the air checking is how are we doing to improve that evaluation to move us closer to the goal. So you can see how that's much more constructive and it's much more positive. Let's see if there's anything else. I don't see any more questions coming in right now. So I will give it another minute or so. And unless any more questions come in, I'll probably wrap this up and move on and pick it up next month. So if you, once again, you'll get a link later on today to watch this seminar on demand anytime between now and Sunday. Once Sunday comes, it's gone for free, and you can pay $9.95 to watch it anytime you like. Or if you're a member of Insiders, you can watch all of the webinars on demand anytime you like in the entire library. Insiders memberships start at $19.95 a month. And one more. Terry Avery says, in the PPM world, is it necessary to hassle talent who don't open and or close with the call letters? Yes. Yes. A couple more questions have come in, so I'll answer these and then we'll wrap up. Terry, yes, it absolutely, positively, 100% is necessary to hassle talent who doesn't open and close with the call letters. Now, I don't think it has to be a literal open and close, first thing out of your mouth, last thing out of your mouth, or anything like that. But I think it's really important to shine a bright spotlight on the station that you're on and your name and your personality brand. And the reason for that is because you can do a quick search of all the stations that your station shares Cume with, and look at the time spent listening. They are punching buttons. The average listening session for a P1 in the morning show right now among adults 25 to 54 is about 7 minutes per session. They are punching buttons. They are tuning in and out. They're paying attention at times, and they're not paying attention at other times. And the reason that you brand the show with the call letters and with the station and the dial position and your name is to make it important enough for the audience to remember you and come back, not to keep them there. And it's not a diary methodology. I understand it's PPM. It's not diary methodology. You get credit for listening, whether they remember you or not, but they're not going to remember to come back unless you're important. And how are they going to remember to come back to your station if you never tell them what station it is? One of the stations I'm working with right now is driving me absolutely nuts. And I listened to them about 2 weeks ago, and the morning show went 22 minutes without mentioning the radio station by name. 22 minutes. That's 3 complete turnovers in audience at 7 minutes per session. Their audience turned over 3 complete times before they mentioned the station they were on. So how is that listener who jumps out of the car, runs into Starbucks, comes out and is on the phone? Maybe they've turned on a video. Maybe they've taken a phone call. Maybe they've tuned to another station. How are they going to remember you if you never tell them who you are? Because they can't remember what station they hear anything on. So it's really, I think it's more important now than it's ever been before. So there's a long answer to a short question. Next question is, when you are dealing with talent with a lot of experience, how do you steer them? They know the basics, but my challenge is taking a good show and making it great. Brad, I think if they are motivated, I kind of answered this in my rant a little bit ago about motivated talent, that you can't motivate talent, but you can inspire them. I think if they are motivated, what you find their trigger. What's going to make them want to get better? What's going to make them want to succeed more? And how can you leverage that in the way that you work with them? If you find that trigger point and say, let me help you get what you want. And, again, if all the talent wants is to collect a paycheck and come in and do their show every day and leave, there's not much you can do with that. But if they want to be great, if they want to succeed, if they want to continue being at the top of the market for the next 20 years, veteran talent, a lot of experience, how do you steer them? I think you steer them by inspiring them with new ideas, with new techniques, with things that will get them interested in doing their show again. And if they just want to come in and do it the same way they've done it the last 20 years, there's not much you can do with that. But if they are looking for things, then it's your job as a coach to prepare for those sessions, prepare for those coaching sessions, and inspire them with things that are going to get them excited. And I've seen that happen with veteran talent that, frankly, I was with a station a few months ago that when I first started working with them, I thought for sure this show was going to eventually have to be replaced, that they were never going to work out. And I was wrong. They surprised me. They were motivated. They did care. It just was a matter of finding out what they wanted and how they wanted to get there. Last question. It's about the guitar that's behind me. A couple of people asked about that. It's a Rolling Stones guitar, and I've told the story before, so if you've heard this before, you'll probably bail out right now. But I'll tell you once again, that's from the Rolling Stones. It was their Bridges to Babylon tour that opened at Qualcomm Stadium here in San Diego many years ago. And the single, I wish I could remember the name of the single that they first released from it. But since the tour was opening in San Diego, I thought the song was pretty good. I knew it wasn't going to be a top 10 hit, but it was pretty good. And I started playing it on the station because we were, one of the things that we prided ourselves in was being so connected locally. And everybody was talking about the Stones coming and the tour starting in San Diego. And what a great way to talk about being connected with the community by playing their brand new song. Well, Trudy Green was the Stones manager at the time, and maybe she still is, I don't know. But she pays close attention to everything radio's doing with the band. And she called me one day and said, I just talked to Mick, and the guys all know what you're doing with the song. This is a hot AC station playing a brand new Rolling Stones song in the late 90s, right? So it kind of stood out. And she said, would you tell me the reasons why you're playing that song? Because no other AC stations are playing it. So I told her, and she said, will you do me a favor? Will you write me a letter and write it to Mick? So I wrote the letter to him, and she said, and then she got back to me and said, would you mind if I publish this in the radio trade publications to try and get other airplay? And I said, sure, that's fine. So she took out full page ads in the trade publications about the reasons why I think it's right for radio stations to play the Stones song, even if it doesn't turn out to be a big hit, but you should be playing it because it's an event. And the song worked for us. It tested playable, but it never tested great. So we played it all the way up until a couple of weeks after the band was here. And the few days before the concert, Trudy called and said, Mick would like to meet you before the concert. Would you like to meet Mick Jagger? I said, sure. Of course. Who would turn that down? So in the green room at Qualcomm Stadium before their first performance on the tour, my wife and I went back and had a private session with Mick Jagger. We spent about 15, 20 minutes with Mick. And at the end, he says, I have something I would like to give you, but I will make it your choice. He said, would you like a guitar? I'll go get all the guys to sign a guitar, or I'll give you a official tour jacket and make you an honorary Rolling Stone. And I said, give me the guitar. I'll keep the guitar forever. So he went and got it signed, and then he came back and he gave it to us. And he said, today's it was Charlie Watts' 63rd birthday. I think it was 63rd. I think it was his 63rd birthday. Today's Charlie's birthday, and we're having a big party for him over here in this club that's inside the stadium. He had a private room inside the stadium. They had DJs playing there, and the place was packed. He goes, would you guys like to come over and be my guest at Charlie's birthday party? Of course. Absolutely. Who wouldn't want to do that, right?